Hello, my name is Linda Perry, and I am a BMC solution engineer. We've been working through a series of videos about BMC Helix dashboards. This video is about advanced dashboards, and it's part 2. It is the 4th video in the series. So the topics that we will cover in this video are utilizing a more advanced parsing technique against the query response to get what you need from the data that is returned, and then utilizing variables to create a more flexible type of dashboard. Okay, now we are going to be talking about the advanced parsing technique. We are looking at a dashboard that is for Microsoft SQL Server, but it is about the application class that is specific for the database health. So anything within this dashboard relates to databases. So that's why we have a new drop-down for a variable called database, which we were able to develop in our variables section. So if I just check one of these database names, Smart Reporting, you can see that the screens change to focus on that one particular database. Some of them are specific about the database themselves, but others talk about specific artifacts that come with a database, like logs, for instance. So if we look at this particular dashboard here, you can see that we have 2 logs that are related to Smart Reporting. So I just want to show you how we had to parse that information out because it does get a little more advanced. Okay, so I'm showing you the panel that gives us that log information. I've made a copy of it. And I just want to show you what we started with. So we initially said I want to look at this application class and see what I get back. And then we understood that we needed to focus on the database portion of the entity name because this particular data class, an application class, is related to databases. There is a variable that we should be familiar with by now. It's 2 curly brackets, 2 underscores, name, and then the same at the end. And that actually gives you the parameter name when you utilize that within your dashboard. So you can see that we can tell which parameters are popping up within our query based on utilizing that variable in our legend. But that doesn't give us enough information about the data that we're getting returned. So let's try something else. Let's look at another variable that is part of this record, and it's called entity name. We utilized it in our query. Let's see what it looks like when we utilize it within our legend. So now we can see what is coming back in the entity name. But again, this is a bit long. That's not going to look great on our graph when we see it on our dashboard. What I really want to do is just pull out this last piece, msdb log, tempdb log, arsystem.log, and I want it to be related to my database. So another way that is even more advanced to look at the data that we're getting returned, we can use Query Inspector. So let me just remove what I had added here for legend, and let's go to Query Inspector. You refresh here, and what is returned is an array of the data points that are coming back. So I'm going to expand to show you what the objects look like that are being returned. We'll do a few so we can compare. So this is what is getting returned. The entity name is what I'm going to focus on. Now, it is a bit long, as we saw when we put that into the legend. We really just want to parse out this ending portion of this entity name, just the .msdb.log.model.log, because that's the log name that this particular dashboard refers to. So if you want to understand how the data is coming back, you don't just hover over it on the graph. You can actually look at this query inspector and get a detailed look at the information that's coming back from your query. So now let's just close this. And what we're going to do is use label replace, which is a PromQL function that we can utilize to parse out our entity name and get the information that we want, the log name. And I already have a built query for this. So once I paste my query that I've pre-built, in, then you can see that it is actually parsing out my entity name and finding the log names at the end of that value. So label replace is something that you put around your original query, around with brackets, and then it provides you back a variable name. So that's this var1 that I have down here now. And what I'm doing is I'm looking for that host name twice, and then anything after the host name I'm going to pull into my var1 from the entity name. As we saw before, our entity name was a little long. It had the host name a couple times, and then it had the log name at the end. So that's what I did here, and it made it a lot more readable as a database. So now when I select a database over here, it's going to select my database, for instance, Smart Reporting, and I'm only going to see the logs that are associated to Smart Reporting in this particular panel that I created. That is a very powerful function to be able to parse out that information and show your graph in a more legible manner. Okay, now we're going to talk about the flexibility and the nature of dashboards and how it is easy to organize them and utilize them. So we're looking again at our Microsoft SQL Server dashboard, and I'm able to organize my panels by just dragging them around the screen and resizing them by dragging them by selecting the corner and moving it around. So maybe I want to just make this one a little smaller, and I want to make this one a little smaller so that they can fit next to each other within this quadrant of the screen. Easy to move them around. I can select this one and move this one underneath, and you can see that the rest of the screen just adjusts into the blank space that was made available by me moving that particular panel around. I can also add within this screen a new type of panel, right? Instead of just a graphing panel, I can convert it to a row. But you can see here I also have paste copy panel. Why would I care about that? I know how to duplicate panels. But maybe you want to copy one of these panels via this ability to copy it instead of duplicate it and paste it into another dashboard altogether. So that's the way you would do that. But let's just convert this one to a row. I can actually name my row. I can edit it. Just say row 1. And then I can collapse that row, and all of the panels that we're showing are now collapsed under that row. Maybe I want to focus on this particular panel here. I can drag it above that row and collapse the rest of them, and now I can focus on this particular panel. So those are all very easy ways to manipulate and organize your dashboard views. Another thing we can talk about here is the ability to make a dashboard a favorite. So if I click this star here, it will put this dashboard into my favorites folder. And when I go back to my Manage tab over here, then I will be able to find this dashboard within my favorites, and it will be easier to find it and get to it. Another thing here is this icon will allow you to share your dashboard with others. So you can share it via a link and they can log in and look at it. So you can copy the link from here and send it in an email, for instance. You can do a snapshot, which allows it to be exported, and there will be some ability to interact with it as well. Not commonly used though. This particular section is commonly used. You would export your dashboard if, let's say, you developed it in your development BMC Helix dashboard environment, and you want to put it into your production BMC Helix dashboard environment. So here you would export it and it would be in JSON format, and then you would be able to utilize that and import it into your other environment, your production environment. So that's what your JSON looks like. And if I wanted to import it, I would go to Manage, and then within Manage, there is an Import button. The other option within this screen is to download a version of it into PDF format so you can share it with others. A couple of things that we should point out in our dashboard settings. In the General section, you can rename your dashboard and save it as that new name, so that's kind of a way to make a copy. You can look at your JSON for your dashboard down on this tab, and you can actually copy it out from here, select it all and copy it out. So those are all the main housekeeping features that I wanted to point out. Let's move on to talk about a flexible dashboard. So this is a dashboard that I created, and it's not focused on one application class. It's actually allowing me to choose which application class I want to show on my panel that I've created. So if I look here, these are all the different application classes that are available in my metrics database. And I'm going to choose one that's pretty common so we can understand what we're looking at. I'll just check NT CPU. And as you can see, this parameter section is updating, and it's going to show me all of the parameters that are available under this application class. And I can choose which ones I want. I can also see, oh, okay, we have NT-CPU that we have metrics for. What host names are pushing that information in and are related to NT-CPU? Of course, these are all Windows systems. And I can select a different host name. I've made my parameter value multi-selectable. So I can say, I can deselect that one, I can select the next one down, I can select the last one, and it will update my panel, my graph here, my line graph, with that information that I just placed into my parameter value. And I can hover over them and see all the different data points that are coming in. If you want to understand how we did this, we can look at the variables in our dashboard settings. So you know in a previous video that we recorded that initially when we were talking about dashboards, we actually were focusing on one application class, and we had a regular expression here. It was /MSSQL underscore asterisk slash. And that limited this dashboard to be only for MS SQL, the Microsoft SQL Server KM. But in this case, we're not putting any regular expression in, so I'm not limiting this dashboard by application class. I do use this variable that I created within the other two parameters. So you can see I have $application here and $application here under parameter and hostname. So as I select my application from my dropdown, it's only going to show me then in the parameter dropdown those parameters that apply with that application. It's also going to only show me the host names that apply to this application. So it makes a very flexible dashboard. If I look at my parameter variable, this is where I set I would like to have multiple values. You can select an all option as well. If I update that, once I've selected the all option, it appears at the top of my dropdown. And if I select all, it's going to show all of these parameters on my panel, on my graphical view. Now it has updated, and you can see that it's showing all of those parameters that are part of NT-CPU within my graph. So this is just one way to make a panel flexible for a user. You can adjust this panel as well so that it is more usable within your use case. So this is the end of the series about BMC Helix dashboards. I hope it was helpful.